I watched Madoka Magica this week. Have you seen that? Yes, I have. Juan_dinner. I watched Madoka Magica when it came out, and Madoka Magica is a really interesting one for a lot of different reasons. So I remember like watching that come out and like not knowing what it was at all, not knowing the twist, and like watching the first episode and being like, oh cool, it's like a magical girl show. And then episode 3 hits, and I feel like it's weird. I feel like Madoka Magica, it used to be the fucking anime. Like if you were watching anime in the early 2010s, Madoka Magica is kind of what people were talking about, and I think rightfully so. I think it really deserves that like title. I think Madoka Magica absolutely rules. But back then, it started this big conversation where people started saying like, it's like a deconstruction of the magical girl genre, which immediately started this huge backlash of like, it is not a deconstruction of the magical girl genre. And the word deconstruction became this very like divisive phrase. And looking back now, I think it was like kind of a lot of nothing. I think like deconstruction, you can look at kind of anything as a deconstruction. It's just a lens to look at shit through. I really, really loved that initial series. I've watched it through a couple of times, and every time I do, I'm really shocked by like how strong the atmosphere is, how like weird and cool it feels, even before shit kind of like pops off in it. And I think the way you kind of understand what those characters are and why the situation is so fucked, it's like, it's beautiful. Like, it's really, really good. I am less fond of the third movie that came out. That is one of those movies where it feels like Evangelion 3.0 to me, where 90% of the movie is just two people sitting at a table talking. And there's really cool shit around that, but that's just not... I don't want my movies to be visual novels. Pumpkin Frogs, I was 12 and my brother showed it to me as a normal magical girl show, and it was a canon event. It's also a lesbian now. I'm also a lesbian now, and that can't be a coincidence. So look, I'm not saying we should terrify children with media they're not ready for. I will say the stuff that I saw too young was The Shining, Akira, and I'd say that's it. I'd say they're the main ones. And even though they were kind of traumatic, I would not give up my experience. Like, I watched a bunch of horror films, but nothing ever like terrified me like those two did. And now, being older and knowing the role that both those things play in like my life and my general direction, I would not give that shit up for anything. So I'd know. I think if I had a kid and it came of age, or like to a certain age, sometimes I think I'd be like, do you want to watch this? Like, if they were interested in something, I'd be like, you sure? But I don't know. I also guess I don't want to deal with this child screaming in the middle of the night because it's terrified. Akira scarred you dearly from what I remember. Oh, my tiny child brain could not handle Akira. I, like, did not know what the fuck I was looking at, and it was incredible. Man, I don't think a piece of art has ever hit me as hard as first seeing Akira when I was little. Evangelion. I would argue that I was kind of the perfect age to view Evangelion because I was the same age as the characters of Eva. I was 14 when I started watching Evangelion, and that was like talk about a piece of art entering your life at the perfect time. And I've made this point so many times with Evangelion, right? But it's like, in a way, I feel bad for people watching Evangelion now, because now you hear about Eva long before you see it, right? You watch Eva because it is introduced to you as the most important anime a lot of times. Like, maybe less so with like the younger crowd, but if you stick around the anime fandom long enough, like you're going to encounter Eva like eventually, and it is kind of seen as like, in terms of like 26 or 24 episode anime, it's like the show, right? It is the thing. You have a few other things up there like Cowboy Bebop, but I would say Cowboy Bebop's appeal isn't quite as universal as Eva's. But the problem is like you are hearing its reputation before you get to experience it. And I think that's a problem, because I think then it's hard not to react to what Eva has become in pop culture, as opposed to just how it hits you personally. First time I ever saw Evangelion, it was the episode where Misato stops that like Evangelion replacement unit from causing a nuclear meltdown. I just remember watching it and just being like, what the fuck is this? You know, like, I just couldn't get my head around it, but there were parts about it that just felt like, as a 14-year-old, it was like fucking speaking to me. And for all I knew, no one else in the entire world had ever seen it. This is the thing I watched at like 5 o'clock in the morning on the Sci-Fi Channel in Ireland. I'd never met a single other person who'd watched it. I didn't know anything about it. And for all I knew, this was like the most obscure thing ever and wasn't going to become like the biggest anime of all time. If you go back and watch that episode, like, it's not a super like meaningful episode. It's kind of like an episode of the week thing. But even just like the way the characters were acting, I felt like the teenagers were acting like teenagers. You know, they weren't idealized versions of teenagers. They were just teenagers, you know. And like Shinji and Asuka both suck in their own way. Like, you know, they're both kind of shitty in their own very genuine, very authentic way. And, you know, I came back the next night and I kept watching it and I kept watching it and had my fucking mind blown. And then I remember that Christmas I tracked down a box set of Eva and I just watched it all. And I loved it so much. Like, I loved it so much. Rei ended up being my favorite. I think the reason that I liked Rei so much was because there's all these sequences with Rei where it felt like she is trying so hard to understand other people and understand why she's different to them. Like, I always think of the scene where she's holding Gendo's glasses, and she's just kind of looking at them, trying to understand how she feels about this person. And there's so many scenes like that with Rei. And like, Rei is like one of my favorite fictional characters of all time. And I think as a teenager, like, I really related to that. I don't want to drop another bombshell in the chat here, but I was not the most like socially competent teenager. You know, I really struggled with understanding why other people were the way they were. And like, I went to an Irish Catholic boys' school, you know, and the culture in my class was like, it was like, I would say, like, looking back, it was a like kind of toxic class, and like people were really homophobic. I remember one time there was one guy in our school and he was gay. His name was Mark. Everyone knew he was gay. He was like chill, like he was fine, like he was grand. He was a little odd, but he was a little odd in the way that like he was a teenager, right? We were getting changed for sports one day, and next thing, like, I just hear someone go, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I look over, and it's a classmate of mine, and he's talking to Mark. And like, Mark was like not like he was like a pretty shy, like, kind of retiring guy. It was just everyone knew he was gay. And then the dude just punched him, just like actually fucking punched him, and I couldn't believe it. And like, I thought Mark was nice, like I thought he was sound, and the dude's name was Liam, and I was like, "Liam, what the fuck are you doing?" And he just goes, he was looking at me, and like, I got into a huge screaming match with this dude Liam then, and being like, "What is your fucking problem?" You know, it was weird, you know. That was like the attitude back then, and like, these were the dudes I hung out with when I was a teenager. And there was a lot of them, like, I just didn't get why they were the way they were. I didn't get why, like, they treated women the way they did. I didn't get why they treated, like, gay people the way they did. And there was so much of that. They were all, like, sports dudes and sports jocks. And to make this analogy super fucking corny and, like, link myself back to an anime character, seeing Rei just so, like, oblivious to why people did the things they did around them, it was like this really, like, genuinely super powerful thing. And then, like, you know, it introduced stuff to me like the hedgehog's dilemma, how like getting close with people is like a good thing, but it's like painful, you know. And that's kind of that sort of stuff I had never seen represented in media. Like, this idea that, like, yes, closeness is very good and it is great to be close to people, but the closer you are to someone, the more capacity that they have to hurt you. And, like, I wasn't experiencing any of this stuff by, like, reading think pieces about Evangelion or seeing character breakdowns on TikTok or watching video essays about Eva. This was the kind of thing where, like, I was just a 14-year-old and fucking soul bonding with this show, you know? And then like I remember even like when Kaoru come into it, and there's that scene with Kaoru and Shinji, and like he puts his hand on Shinji. I was like, oh, this lad's kind of like Mark. And it was like, you know, I was seeing shit in this show that just hit on such a like profoundly, deeply personal level. And like I nearly feel shitty saying this, because what I don't want this to sound like is like, oh, young people today don't appreciate anime. That's not what it's about at all. But it is about this thing where it's like, I think you approach a piece of media differently without the expectation attached to it, and when it does just like enter your life in this very particular way. So with Eva, like, Eva to me was being seen. But I think to a lot of people now, you seek out Eva to test other people's opinions of it. You know what I mean? You seek out Eva to see if it really is the Go anime like people say it is. And I think there's something kind of sad about that. Now, that's not me saying that, like, you can't also develop a really deep and meaningful connection to Eva. Like, obviously, no matter what the expectation, I have no doubt that there's going to be people who are like, yeah, that's how I found it, and it's still my favorite anime of all time. It's just like, it's just a weird, different thing. And ultimately, I think it's better that more people know about Eva than not. But it is, it's just something I think about a lot with Eva in particular, because I really do still love that show so much. I have never done a big Evangelion video, ever. I've done like one Evangelion video, which was just about like the elevator scene. Sad Katem, 100% I didn't enjoy Eva that much because I was looking for the hype. Yeah, and I would say, like, if you're one of those people who watched Eva, didn't like it because you felt like it was too hyped up or whatever, I would say give it a couple of years and try again. And like now with that initial expectation gone because you've watched it and you know that you didn't have that reaction to it. But yeah, I've never done a huge big Evangelion video before because this is gonna sound so fucking corny. I hate saying this. I think it's because like the show means too much to me. You know, I think that would be too difficult. I think it would be a really long video. I think it would also be me saying that, like, I don't particularly care about the third and fourth rebuild movies. Like, I think they're fine. I think they're grand. It's just not the show that I fell in love with. But I just think, like, emotionally, I don't know that I could ever make an Evangelion video. I really don't. I think it's just, it's too close to the bone, you know? So maybe this is it. Maybe this is my Evangelion video. But yeah, it's a really, really difficult and beautiful anime in a lot of ways. Like I still think it is. I still think of that scene where Asuka comes back early from one of her dates, and most of the episode is her and Shinji hanging out in the apartment by themselves. And it's just, I have had nights like that with people, you know? Like, I have had that exact scenario where it's like, oh shit, I'm alone with this person and I don't know how to feel about this. I remember before, oh fucking god, I hope she doesn't watch this. I used to have a huge crush on my best friend's older sister. She was just like the like typical like cooler older sister, and she was like 3 years older than me. And she was like she was into wrestling. Sometimes we talk about wrestling, and she was just like really pretty. She'd occasionally like kick our asses, which I think maybe had a lasting effect. One night I like called over to my friend, and he wasn't there, and she answers the door, and I'm like, oh hey, is blank there? And she's like, no, he's not. And then I'm like, oh okay. And then she's like, but you can still come in if you want. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah. Do you want to come in? And I was so shocked that I immediately go, no, that's okay. And she just looks at me and she just goes, what? And I go, okay, I'll come in. And I went in, and me and her ended up just like hanging out for the entire night. And to this day, it was like one of the best nights I've ever had. And like nothing like happened. Like it wasn't like I did have a huge crush on her, but like it wasn't like anything romantic happened, you know? But it was just like we got on so well, and it was like so fucking chill and cool, and it was just like it's such a fond memory even now. And I remember when I was leaving, like she gave me a hug and she was like, you know, John, like if you ever want to hang out again, like that's cool. Like Michael, like my friend doesn't have to be there for, you know, for us to hang out. And I remember being like, yeah. And I was such a fucking coward. I never never did it. I never tried. I never did it again, you know? And I just, yeah, I still... And she's also a patron. I don't think she watches this channel. I am fucking praying she doesn't watch this channel, because even 20 years later, that shit is so embarrassing. Yeah, she's still cool. Like, I'm still close with her entire family. But I always remember that night. And I guess my point was, like, when I saw that episode of Shinji and Asuka, like, that's exactly how it felt. That's kind of what the... Okay, someone just said she's in chat. No, the fuck she isn't. I know she doesn't watch my Twitch channel, and she's not finding... I got such a fucking fright there. Jesus. For the love of God, stop talking, Sean. But, yeah. But, yeah, that... I guess Evangelion, to me, really what I'm getting at here is that I stumbled upon this show that felt like it was explicitly made for me at the exact right time. And I don't know that I will ever be able to convey that through a video essay. I feel like nearly like the process of making a video essay would take some of the sincerity out of how I feel. I don't know, it's difficult. But yeah, that's my Evangelion video essay, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. John, she's standing right behind you. I regret. What? Why do I tell you guys anything? What? Literally, why do I tell you guys anything? So, John, how goes the autism diagnosis? I mean, okay, I haven't been diagnosed for autism, but I think I should probably go get tested. I think that'd be pretty funny. Oh my god. Okay, I was at her wedding once before. Once she got married once. I was at her wedding before, and it was really cool to see her, and like she was really happy to see me there, and like she gave me a big hug and everything. And like I'm talking to her, and it's like very normal. Like it's just cool, because obviously like it's a long time later. I'm not like the teenager anymore. And then then at one point she just goes, "Oh man, I remember we used to wrestle, and I always used to kick your ass." And I was just, okay, well, listen, good wedding. And it just immediately turned me back into an awkward teenager for a couple of seconds. And god fucking damn it. Okay, that's it. End of that story. End of the fucking Ava rants. Let's play some Fear and Hunger.